When Susan Boyle appeared on Britain's Got Talent in 2009, she stunned everyone. She sold millions of records and became an overnight phenomenon. However, everything had collapsed by 2022. She was unable to talk for months after suffering a major stroke. It was alleged that her management staff was in charge of music, every aspect of her life. During shows, she passed out from fatigue. Her recovery videos were ridiculed by online bullies until she removed them from social media. The 64-year-old woman who used to sing for presidents now finds it difficult to do basic everyday chores. It is devastating to learn the reality about her current state. On April 1, 1961, Susan Boyle was born in Blackburn, a small village in West Lothian, Scotland. In a large family of 11, she was the youngest and ninth kid. Her mother was a shorthand typewriter, while her father, who had served in World War II, put in long hours at the call lure. Up until she was a teenager, Susan frequently squeezed in with her siblings, and the house always felt full with 4 brothers and 5 sisters sharing beds and, music, blankets. By 1961 standards, the pregnancy was dangerous and stressful, especially for a family already struggling with household bills. Her mother was aged 47 when she fell pregnant. Faith, however, kept the Boyles together. They attended Mass every week. Irish customs filled the house with stories, and prayers, music, reverberated through the little rooms. In the neighborhood bars, her father, Patrick, was well known for his soothing singing voice. He never quite recovered from the trauma of World War II, though, and carried that pain with him at home. His PTSD occasionally manifested as abrupt eruptions of wrath or emotion. These were infrequent but frightening moments for the kids. Later on, Susan talked about that period with profound empathy. Seeing him as a guy struggling to support his enormous family, music, on a miner's income and dealing with memories he never requested, she forgave him. She gained empathy and strength from the contrast between his upbeat public persona and his inner problems. Music, another difficulty surfaced when she was just 5 years old. Her convulsions began, often in the middle of meals. As her siblings fanned her face and waited for her to return, she would pass out for several minutes. She was diagnosed with epilepsy by doctors, but there were few therapies available, and the illness was frequently left untreated. Her early years were disturbed by these convulsions. They forced her to distance herself from music, friends, avoid social gatherings, and miss school. She hated going to school. She had trouble understanding social cues and reading. Additionally, teachers frequently misinterpreted her conduct in the absence of a clear diagnosis. She was constantly harassed by kids. They made fun of her speech, her attire, and how slowly she picked things up. They gave her the nasty moniker Susie Simple, which lingered with her for years and caused severe emotional damage. She was not allowed to participate in playground games and frequently had her lunch taken away. Teachers ignored the situation or failed to notice it, thus her mother had to repeatedly stand up for her daughter. She felt as though she was fighting a losing struggle every day at school. She gradually turned to music as an escape. She joined the parish choir at the age of 12, and singing hymns like a Maria brought her moments of tranquility that she hardly experienced otherwise. Her voice caught the choir director's attention right away, and she frequently got solo parts. Rehearsals were interrupted by her seizures, but she always returned. She would retreat into the vest until she felt better, at which point she would resume singing. Singing, indeed. She felt like she belonged somewhere for the first time. She was able to ignore the suffering she brought from home and school thanks to the church's echo of her voice. When she was 11 years old, her mother urged her to participate in her first talent show after noticing her talent. She won by singing Cry Me a River. She felt more confident and had a vision of what her life could be after winning that reward. However, proper training was out of reach and funds were constantly limited. Using a hairbrush as a microphone and imagining the living room as a large stage, she rehearsed at home by imitating well-known vocalists like Shirley Bassey and Judy Garland. Whenever she could, she entered tiny competitions in the hopes that someone would notice. Even though everyone around her told her that her dream was unattainable, those little triumphs kept it alive. Living with undiagnosed autism makes day-to-day living difficult. Music, sensory overload was brought on by packed halls and noisy classrooms. She was frequently left alone in corners by teachers, which exacerbated her loneliness. She was taught from a young age to keep quiet, avoid music gatherings, and shrink to avoid being noticed. Even after she became famous and had to stand in front of millions of people, she continued that tendency into adulthood. She was challenged by the lights, the throng, and the loudness. However, she was able to control her nervousness with the help of others who could relate to her. She had relatively few credentials when she graduated from school at the age of 16. She signed up for government training programs designed to teach young people fundamental skills. However, the bullying also followed her there. Eventually, she left school. She took various jobs to make ends meet, such as working as a kitchen assistant at West Lothian College. She would sing for her co-workers during breaks, and they were usually taken aback by the strength of her voice. Even if her confidence was lacking, she appreciated those fleeting moments of appreciation because they showed her that her skill was genuine. When her mother's health deteriorated when she was 18, her life once more shifted. Susan set her personal aspirations aside without hesitation and took on the role of full-time caregiver. Music, she volunteered at the church and spent long days taking care of her mother. She sang "I Don't Know How to Love Him" at a church fundraiser in 1979. This time, the congregation's applause felt different. It was the first time she had felt acknowledgement outside of her family. She spent the majority of her life taking care of other people, but these church concerts helped her maintain her passion of music. She started receiving singing lessons from vocal coach Fred Music O'Neill about the same time. She was able to control her breathing and deal with the pauses brought on by her epilepsy thanks to his teaching. She enrolled in the Edinburgh Acting School in 1980 in an effort to overcome her shyness and gain confidence on stage. Even though it was difficult to walk through the door due to anxiousness, she persisted. Her development was aided by those classes, which also established the foundation for her future profession. In 1986, at the age of 25, she summoned the bravery to try out for the BBC Talent Search Open Door. Despite weeks of rehearsal, she was turned down by the judges. They made a scathing remark that affected her for years: "You're too plain." After that, she stayed out of the spotlight for over a year, concentrating solely on her mother and staying away from anything that brought up that traumatic experience. Her voice became louder, but her confidence dissolved. It would be a long time before she tried again. Throughout the 1990s, Susan Boyle led a modest existence that was filled with a quiet fire on the inside. In Blackburn, Scotland, she put in long hours as a waitress, music, and checkout clerk. She returned home to take care of her dementia-stricken mother, Bridget Boyle. She would approach the karaoke mic and music, sing every night as her shift finished and the pub patrons became heated and boisterous. "Memory from Cats" was her favorite song. People began asking for it as soon as she stepped in since she sang it so frequently. Nobody thought her voice would get her anywhere, but it filled the room with something that seemed larger than the space. Every extra pound she earned was saved, and occasionally she even skipped meals to increase her savings for her dream. She continued to be bashful, singing primarily because it was natural to her and not because anyone applauded. Even though those around her never imagined she would sell millions of records, those years helped to form her kind heart and unwavering dedication to music. At the age of 34, she made her debut on national television in 1995. She tried out for Michael Barrymore's talent program, My Kind of People. She selected the Jesus Music Christ Superstar song "I Don't Know How to Love Him." For someone who had never ventured outside of her little town lifestyle, it was a courageous decision. She advanced to the music regional finals after surviving the preliminary rounds, but her confidence was shattered by the pressure. Her voice broke at the highest note during the live performance. She was instantly cut by the judges. She was embarrassed. She vowed to never attempt TV again when she got home. She shunned the memory for months, as if it were an inaccessible wound. She was persuaded she wasn't cut out for large stages by that failure, which followed her into her later years of performing. She made another attempt in 1997, this time at the Edinburgh Festival Fringe rather than on television. She performed as a backup vocalist in a tiny local production of Les Miserables. She sung with all of her heart despite the minor role and the meager gratuities of £50 per night. Nevertheless, several audience members made fun of her attire and unassuming appearance. She was terribly wounded by their statements. Every taunt made her question whether she even belonged on a stage, even though she enjoyed performing. She persisted because she was hoping for a record deal. But there was a mixture of doubt and optimism every night. She learned the art of performance during those fringe years, but she also witnessed cruelty that she would never forget. Susan immersed herself in church music following the death of her father in 2000. At the Knock Shrine in Ireland, she led special events, sang at masses, and joined the choir. Her voice found tranquility within her beliefs. However, she had a difficult life outside of the religion. Rent was barely covered by money. She mailed demo cassettes to anybody she could find while living off of government assistance. Most businesses never responded. Few did, and they said no. She lived day to day for nearly 10 years, questioning whether the dream, music, she had held since childhood was really a wish. But she was stronger because of her solitary life. Her voice grew more expressive, molded by long-term patience, hope, and grief. Her life took an even more sinister turn in 2002. A neighbor close to her house attacked her following a late-night music performance at a tavern. She was afraid of the attack. She secured her windows and doors with additional locks. She never longer left the house unless absolutely necessary. Her universe, music, became smaller. She continued to sing at small neighborhood gatherings and at churches, but a shadow trailed her. She was afraid of strangers. She was afraid of being noticed. She was afraid of getting harmed again. Long before she became famous, that moment transformed her. It made the thought of standing in front of a big crowd seem unattainable and taught her, music, how precarious safety might be. Then April 14, 2009, arrived. At 47, Susan Boyle took the stage of Britain's Got Talent, dressed simply and exuding the reserved demeanor she had endured for decades. Audience members laughed and muttered. The judges appeared disinterested. So everything changed as she opened her mouth and sang, "I Dreamed a Dream." Everyone in the room was astounded by the 4 octaves of music in her voice. Normally icy and harsh, Simon Cowell sat still. Everyone in the audience stood up. In just a few weeks, the performance received over 100 million views. Strangers witnessed the reality she had been hiding for years for the first time in music, her life. People made fun of her appearance before she sung. They fell silent once she finished singing music. After wiping away her tears, Amanda Holden, who had been dubious, apologized for anticipating the worst. The world was moved by the juxtaposition between her voice's beauty and harsh demands. Her audition turned into a metaphor for how hastily and incorrectly individuals may make judgments. Her performance throughout the show was amazing. At the time, she had the most votes cast by the public in the tournament. 17 million people watched her live rendition of This Is the Moment. But celebrity also brought harshness. With scathing headlines that attempted to discredit her, tabloids made fun of her appearance. Her music, however, reached new heights. By the end of 2009, her debut album had sold over 10 million copies, demonstrating that her skill was more powerful than any criticism. However, she was overtaken by the burden of sudden celebrity. Her hotel was packed with fans. Every move was captured on camera. She was rushed to the hospital after having a severe panic attack that appeared to be a seizure. After diagnosing fatigue, doctors linked her anxiousness to an unidentified type of autism that had influenced her music throughout her entire childhood. The world eventually realized that sudden popularity can break even the strongest of spirits. Her debut album, I Dreamed a Dream, was released on November 23, 2009. In the first week, 700,000 copies were sold in the US alone. By 2010, it was certified triple platinum in the United States and number 1 in 26 other countries. On the Billboard Hot 100, Wild Horses rose to number 14. After years of being ridiculed, Susan Boyle unexpectedly rose to become one of music, the world's best-selling new musicians. It was difficult to create the record. She and producer Steve Lipson worked 12-hour days in Los Angeles. Executives wanted to modernize oldies and tried to steer her toward a pop sound. She declined. She battled to maintain the authenticity and passion of her music. She wasn't going to allow her voice to be changed into something false because it had helped her get through decades of uncertainty. Her perseverance preserved the core of her music and influenced the album. She had additional responsibilities as a result of her unexpected fortune. In her first year, she made almost £5 million, much of which she gave to Blackburn organizations. However, celebrity also came with problems. A lawsuit resulted from a copyright dispute over the song I Dreamed a Dream. Although everything was resolved in the end, it served as a reminder to her that success may be difficult and messy. She sang in the US in 2010 and even sung Amazing Grace for President Obama at the White House. However, during rehearsal, the pressure and lengthy flight caused an epileptic seizure. She canceled a few appearances and took a break, reminding everyone that beneath the strong voice was a person still dealing with fatigue, worry, and health issues. She encountered one more instance in the closing moments of her debut record that demonstrated the bizarre universe she had entered. For a photo shoot, a stylist insisted that she wear high heels. Her knee was damaged after she slipped. She then claimed that the fall felt like an attempt by the industry to change who she was. Her genuineness won her admirers, and the incident demonstrated how the outside world frequently overlooked her actual power. In November 2010, Susan Boyle made her debut in the world of record-breaking music with an album that no one anticipated would become so successful. The gift simultaneously peaked at the top of the US and UK charts and sold over 1.5 million copies in the US alone. In a single year, only 2 musical acts have ever accomplished it. And in the same year that her last album, I Dreamed a Dream, rocked the world, she became the first woman to do it. Holiday sales were further boosted by her eerie voice on Oh Holy Night. Additionally, in December 2010, the single alone had 500,000 downloads. In a small Scottish hamlet, a woman who had been invisible for almost her entire life was the source of it all. She left a photo shoot when people pushed her to lose weight since she was under so much pressure. She was referred to as an obstinate diva in the headlines that followed the incident. Despite her kind nature, shyness, and lack of concern for recognition, her only interest in music was singing. When her third album, Someone to Watch Over Me, peaked at #1 in the UK in August 2011, she shocked everyone once more. In less than 2 years, she became the first female solo artist to have 3 #1 UK albums. Her duet with Geraldine McQueen on I Know Him So was one of the album's best tracks. Music, after a difficult practice, they recorded it in a single passionate take. The album demonstrated that her reserved demeanor and infrequent appearance in the media never held her back, and the song peaked at #7 on the charts. People who initially saw her on Britain's Got Ability in 2009 continued to support her, and the triumph served as a comforting reminder that unpolished ability can develop even in the absence of continuous attention. By 2012, she was prepared to salute Broadway classics with her CD Standing Ovation, which celebrated the songs she adored on stage. Her live performance of Bring Him Home at the O2 Arena, where 20,000 spectators listened in total quiet music until they burst into shouts, produced one of its most memorable songs. Shortly after leaving the stage, she passed out backstage from dehydration due to their intense love. Because it caught every emotion she had in that room, the recording was capped. Her transition from straightforward pop songs to theatrical classics that complemented the depth of her voice began with the album, which sold over 500,000 copies worldwide, Music. Her ascent continued during her Music Globe Tour from 2014 to 2016, which saw her perform in over 100 gigs across 30 countries. The trip sold over £10 million worth of tickets, packing arenas in Sydney, New York, and London. At the Royal Variety Show in 2015, she sang You Will See and dedicated it to the individuals who had harassed her as a youngster, making it one of her most memorable music nights. Millions of people witnessed her take that stage and take back a painful aspect of her past. She was able to establish herself on her own terms thanks to the tour, which also served as a reminder to the public that she was still going strong years after her initial breakthrough. While dealing with one of the most difficult anniversaries of her life in 2016, she recorded A Wonderful World. She sobbed multiple times in the studio as the song overlapped with the anniversary of her mother Bridget's death in 2007. She occasionally sang while tears were still streaming down her cheeks, and the record turned into a subdued homage to the woman who helped her achieve her goals before anyone knew who she was. The album peaked at number 14 in the UK thanks to her song Pennies from Heaven, and listeners were moved by the unadulterated passion in each song. The record became one of her most intimate creations, and the pain gave her music a depth that, music critics applauded. With her album 10, she celebrated 10 years of international recognition in 2019. Among the 4 new songs it featured was her mellow, surreal rendition of When You Wish Upon a Star. She talked about how she nearly gave up after straining her voice cords in 2018 during her tour of the UK. She worried that she may permanently lose her voice and was unable to sing for months. But with the support of her squad and the fans who wouldn't let her go, she bravely and steadily made a comeback. During that tour, her candor strengthened, music, the bond between her and her fans. She also appeared on screen as a result of her stardom. She made an appearance in Zoolander 2 in 2016 and performed in The Christmas Candle in 2013. Her world was broadened by these experiences, but a tabloid in 2018 painted a more somber picture. According to Music, she had little influence over her personal schedule or day-to-day activities and was being secluded by her managers. Discussions concerning the strain late bloomers and celebrity face were triggered by the articles. Although she never talked much about it, people who knew her well reported a regimen that frequently left her feeling overwhelmed and fatigued. Music. She passed out from tiredness later in 2019 while performing in Australia. As she recovered, 3 music gigs were postponed. Eventually, she filed a lawsuit, accusing her management of overworking her while neglecting her health issues. Many people were aware of the difficult circumstances performers face as a result of the case, particularly when their bodies are unable to keep up with the demands of their careers. Her courage in advocating for herself forced the business to examine how artists are handled more closely. When she had a serious stroke at home in Blackburn, Scotland, in April 2022, a new chapter of her life began. She suffered a stroke that debilitated one side of her body and prevented her from speaking or singing for months. Doctors didn't think she would ever be able to speak again. For over 6 years, her world was silence while she underwent physical reconstruction, therapy, speech sessions, and music. She kept everything quiet, and her final comeback was all the more potent because of the silence surrounding her illness. She returned on the stage of Britain's Got Music Talent in June 2023, performing I Dreamed a Dream alongside the Les Miserables cast. The audience stood up. Simon Cowell commended her bravery. She had been battling depression behind the scenes during her recuperation, and she turned to cat videos to help her keep composed and feel better. Despite her infrequent speech slurs and slight tremors, music, she persisted. She demonstrated that night that she still had the courage to continue. When she disclosed that she had Asperger's syndrome in 2024, her bravery inspired her to pursue a new goal. She talked candidly about how earlier in her life, it had been mistaken for brain injury. Her candor made her a voice for autism awareness and ignited discussions everywhere. Her song Homecoming became an anthem of self-acceptance after receiving over 5 million plays in its first month. She worked with autistic organizations, participated in campaigns, and utilized her position to make others feel heard. She went back to the recording studio for the first time since 2019 in May 2025. She unveiled a new blonde appearance at the Pride of Britain Awards and posted pictures and videos of herself back in her happy place. As she sung with minor tremors, music, from her previous stroke, fans hailed her return. She acknowledged Gerald Dean, her manager, for helping her regain her life and confidence and said that he was her rock. A new phase in her lengthy journey was promised by her 2026 music set. During this time, she also experienced cruelty online. Her appearance and recuperation videos were ridiculed by trolls. She deleted her Instagram account due to the anguish. Rather than going into permanent hiding, she came back in 2025 and shared uncut videos of her speech and mobility rehabilitation sessions. A community of support was formed as a result of these candid moments going viral. Her boldness demonstrated that vulnerability can be a source of strength and silenced her detractors. Her 8 albums and years of touring contributed to her $22 million, or about $29.5 million, net worth as of May 2025. I Dreamed a Dream, her debut album, became the best-selling record globally in 2009 after selling over 10 million copies worldwide. She continued to reside in her modest Blackburn home, nonetheless. She never replaced music, her old automobile, carried reusable bags, and went grocery shopping herself. Her modest way of life contributed to her allure. Success never altered her heart, and people adored that. She disclosed extremely intimate facts in her 2010 autobiography, The Woman I Was Born to Be. She wrote candidly about her dread of loneliness and being a virgin until she was 47. In addition to selling hundreds of thousands of copies, the book provided readers with a clear glimpse of her pre-famous fears. She talked about a brief romance she had with a doctor from her tour in 2014 and 2025. It was her first committed partnership. She was reminded of how difficult closeness can be for someone with autism, but it also helped her grow. She discovered comfort in her own company and grew to feel secure in her independence. Her impact went even farther. She is the oldest newcomer to top the UK charts and owns Guinness records for the fastest-selling debut album by a female artist. She performed in significant UK charity events like Comic Relief, Children in Need, and Sport Relief and raised over £1 million for autism research. Singing at the 2010 Papal Mass in Glasgow in front of 65,000 music fans was one of her proudest experiences. Thousands of people heard her speech in the open air and found hope in her tale. She frequently said that, particularly after losing her sister in 2017, the music stage became her happy place. Fans greeted her with the same fervor they had showed since her 2009 debut when she made a comeback in 2025 with her new blonde appearance. She used her happiness to inspire others while concentrating on her legacy. She expressed her gratitude to everyone who supported her and how much performing meant to her through her post-event music. Many were shocked to learn that she had declined marriage proposals from fans worth up to £10 million. She claimed that strong relationships were too much for her because of her autism. Additionally, music revealed that a memoir about her small stroke in 2022, her protracted recuperation, and her emotional return to music would be published in 2026. The book would be full of the strength she carried through each chapter, song, of her life, and it would be honest, heartbreaking, and hopeful.